There is that too. Anywho, so officially, this is like the thing that they have when they say like cut, or they say action. You know, that's what I'm doing. Action. Anyhow. Jesus. It's, of course, it's late at night. Of course. Okay, let me begin. Well, no. Hopefully the lighting is okay, so I don't have to do this more than once. Hi. Okay, as per usual, I have my notes. I'm gonna begin because, of course, it's late at night, and I do not want to be here all night. Like, I say this every single time, and I find myself like making like the longest videos ever, but it's okay. This is the beginning of something new. This is a new series that I decided to do. So I guess I should, before I dive right into it, like I was just about to, I guess I should give like a little bit of a disclaimer. Technically, I actually have done some videos in this series. The videos, the most, I think like the last 4 or 5 videos on my channel have to do with my emancipation journey, and those videos are titled something like The Emancipated Star, right? So the series that I am not exactly starting but continuing today in this video is titled The Emancipated Star. The first 4 or 5, I believe the first like 4 or 5 videos are, no, I had it right. The first 4 videos are a part of the prologue, and the 5th video in this series is called The Emancipated Star, the synopsis. It's been a while, I think like a few months or so, like maybe like 1 or 2, maybe like 2 months since I last did a video, and it's because like I was doing several things, and I was also working on the series that I'm now going to, or the season in the series that I'm going to begin today. It all makes sense. Like as you continue to watch, it'll make sense. But yes, so basically this is a series that is about my emancipation. I'll give like a disclaimer and all this other stuff in a moment. But yes, so I'm continuing where I left off. So if you saw the videos that are titled The Emancipated Star, like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, and then part 5, which was the synopsis where I read this document that's also titled The Emancipated Star, then you may be familiar with some things that I am going to talk about, and this is gonna make way more sense to you than it will to like someone who like just got here. But if this is your first time watching a video from my channel or on my channel and about my emancipation journey, then hello, welcome. I have so much to say. I do tend to be a bit like long-winded, so prepare. Go find something to drink, find something to do while you listen to me if you'd like, or you can just like stare at the screen, like that's an option too, of course. But I'm going to begin this season and title this season foster care, I believe. I don't know. I actually, let me start over. I'm gonna pretend like I know how to do a YouTube video, right? Okay, so I'll do like a little intro statement, and maybe I'll clip like the first 3 minutes of me like gathering myself and my thoughts. It's late and it's been like a really long day for me, so pardon me. I also think I'm just like a little bit nervous. I always get like nervous, even though I've done videos for a long time. I get nervous because it's something new and it's like very vulnerable. So yeah, there is that factor too. But anywho, if you are new to my channel, or if you are a returning viewer on my channel, and you are interested in topics that have to do with emancipation, family separation, family reunification, adoption, not that I was actually adopted, but things that have to do with those topics, then I think that this series and these videos that pertain to my journey of emancipation as a minor will probably be interesting to you. I will probably have a lot of things to say that resonate with you. There is also, of course, like a huge trigger warning that I would issue now, which is that like at some point throughout the season, throughout the series, you might find some of the content to be heavy and like uncomfortable, which is, you know, totally understandable. So go at your own pace. Of course, viewer discretion is advised, basically. But yes, with that being said, like I don't want to take too long with this intro because I do have like lots of notes here, and it's gonna be a pretty long series. Like I will definitely let you know that. Like some of these videos might be closer to like an hour long, or hopefully not more. Hopefully, because I have to edit it all. But yeah, these videos are gonna be long, so there is that too. Anywho, so officially, this is like the thing that they have when they say like cut, or they say action. You know, that's what I'm doing. Action. Anyhow. Okay, so action. I'm gonna be serious though. Like this is actually a very serious matter. I think I'm just getting the, you know, the discomfort out right now. But this is actually like very serious. Anyway. Okay, so you are listening to the Emancipated Star. I am the star who became an emancipated minor at the age of 16. This is the story of my journey before, during, and after my emancipation. So, in this video, which is video 1 of season 1, I am going to talk about how I was placed, and I guess why I was placed in the foster care system, particularly in the state of Florida when I was approximately 5 months young. Season 1 in particular is about my journey throughout the foster care system. So all of the videos that I do in this season, in the first season of the series, pertain to my journey and my time as a foster child in the state of Florida. My voice is because I'm tired. Bueno. Ay, Dios mío. Bueno, so okay, so I was saying that all of the videos in season 1 of this series pertain to my time in the foster care system, specifically in the state of Florida. So the first season is titled something like foster care or family separation, which is like another word for like the process when you are separated from your biological family members. So in this particular episode, I want to first just talk about how I was placed into the foster care system and why. I'll be honest, I have gathered, and I may have like mentioned this in other videos as well, that I have gathered bits and pieces of information over time. This has been a journey for me because it's not like anyone ever sat me down in the beginning when all of these things were happening. Nor did, you know, anyone think to give me the answers like when I was a child and I was in the custody of my foster parent and in the custody of my biological parents. Like I guess no one thought that I might care to know and want to know like what happened to me. So I have sought out the majority of this information and the things that I know today just like through my own efforts and like with the help of, you know, like other people, professionals and stuff like that, just to have a better idea of, you know, how I ended up in the foster care system, because it is not very common that a newborn baby is placed into the foster care system. It happens, of course, but I mean, your situation has to be like pretty dire. And I mean, in general, if you're in the foster care system, obviously, like you were probably like in some pretty tumultuous and dire situations. But as a newborn who like couldn't even walk, couldn't even talk, like that's pretty tragic, you know, to be taken away from your parents. I think it screams that your parents were like pretty unfit to care for you. So of course I had a lot of questions, and of course I didn't remember anything like before I was taken away. So I have gathered a bit of this information on my own in more recent years, and as well as like all throughout my journey. So anywho, I will dive into it. I do have some notes, so that's what I'm looking at, cause it's a lot. Okay, so there's some things that I can speak about like just from like memory, like things like was told. Okay, so like, where do I begin? Okay, so again, this whole video is just me talking about how I was placed into the foster care system and why I was placed into the foster care system. In the next video, that's when I will actually talk about my like family structure and family dynamic in the foster home, just in case you're curious as to like how this is going to work. So I believe in part 4 of the prologue of this series, I spoke about, towards the end of the video, I spoke about how my birth parents met. And for those of you who like don't know and who did not see those prior videos, I am West Indian, I am Caribbean. Another word for West Indian is Caribbean. I am French Caribbean and Hispanic Caribbean, so I'm like on both sides of my family. So my parents come from the island that is called Hispaniola, but the real name of the island, of our island, is Haiti. The indigenous people who, in the United States, they refer to us as Taino, but Taino is the language that our indigenous people speak. It's not the name of the people. The people were Caribs. That's why it's called the Caribbean Sea and the Caribbean Islands, because we were Caribs. So yes, the people that Christopher Raggedy Columbus, as I refer to him, when Christopher Raggedy Columbus stumbled, right, when he encountered our people on the Caribbean islands, he came to the island of Haiti and he encountered people who said, Taino, Taino. That is a salutation, it's like a greeting. So he just wrote back to the parliament that we were the Taino people, but our people were saying like the salutation, our people were welcoming him and greeting him. And the language that our people spoke is Taino, right? So in US textbooks, they typically say that the Taino people are the indigenous people. Our language is Taino, we are the Carib people. There's just a lot of like misinformation and stuff. Anywho, the Carib / Taino people named our island Haiti. Both sides, like the whole island is called Haiti. Today, that island is called Hispaniola, or referred to as Hispaniola, and the French side is called Haiti or Haiti. That's how it's supposed to be pronounced. The H is silent. It's Haiti. We are Haitian people, like Haitian, Haitian, right? So the left side is the Haitian side or the Haitian side, and the right side is the Dominican side, referred to as the Dominican Republic, right? But those who know, like we know that it's really Haiti. The island is Haiti and it will always be Haiti. In fact, I think I shared this in, I think like part 3 or part 4 of this prologue, that it was always called Haiti. When the French took over the left side, they called it Saint-Domingue for a while. And then when the Haitian people revolted and, beheaded all of the colonizers and sent their, people on their way, they renamed the former colony Haiti. That's why it's still called Haiti today, because our people, despite generations and centuries of enslavement, never forgot who we are and never forgot that we are indigenous people of the island of Haiti. Like, it's a lie, it's a myth that we're 99% African. It's just, ignorance from the colonizers and perpetuated, as ignorance often is. But no, our people remember that we are Haitians and we are the indigenous people of the island of Haiti, which is why as soon as our people revolted, the island was named Haiti, as it was always thought of and always referred to as. So anywho, that's just a little history tidbit for people who maybe missed the last part of part 4, and all the other videos, of course, were like I gave like the historical and I guess like geopolitical information that pertains to my parents' upbringing, my people, the West Indians of that island, and myself. So anywho, my parents are from both sides of the island, but my parents met on, I don't know when they met, but they met on the island of Cuba. I believe it was approximately like at the very end of the 80s or at the very, very beginning of the year 1990. But my birth mother was already living in Cuba because she left home when she was young. And then my father was escaping a coup that had happened and pretty much destroyed the country, kind of like what continues to happen. And there's typically like Western powers at the center of that. So he was going through that and he had to flee. So he went to Cuba and he met my birth mother, who was already there. my birth mother was, as what I was told, my birth mother was a translator at a migrant camp. And that is how she met my father, because he was a migrant. She was a translator who could speak many languages, just not English very well, according to what my father told me. So, you know, her role was very instrumental in the migrant camp. But once she met my father, her life changed, and it would never be the same, unfortunately for her, and unfortunately for the rest of the children that they had, including myself. So, anywho, at the top of the 90s, my birth parents married in Cuba. I'm not really sure how long they remained in Cuba, but I know that very early on, like into their marriage, they came to the United States. They came to the state of Florida. And within a couple of years of being married, my birth parents already had two children. So their eldest two children were born pretty much at the early at the start of the 90s, early 90s, and my parents had already relocated to another state. They did not settle or stay in the state of Florida for very long. Um, I guess they just got the opportunity to go to another state, so they decided to. I'm not really sure what the point of that was, but they just decided to go to another state. And my I don't really want to go into too much detail about um, life with like my parents and my older siblings, because like that's really like their story to tell, and I only have like documents to go off of. But from what I've gathered, and what I will say is that my my birth parents pretty much had like a toxic and um, shameful disgrace of a marriage, pretty much like from the very beginning. And largely I would say that it's due to my birth father. um, According to the information that I have, my birth father was abusive from the very beginning. Physically abusive, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive, probably like financially abusive, and just in every other form. Because my birth mother, like I said, she could speak many languages, but she could not speak English very well. Both of my parents were not fortunate enough to receive like much of an education. My birth mother apparently was like privately tutored at home for some time, and had a better upbringing, like a slightly better upbringing, despite her mother being a single mother to 6 children. But my birth father, he suffered like a tragedy, a tragic loss of his mother when he was 5, and I think that caused a lot of instability that led to other issues that he had. And who knows? I don't know. Maybe he just never like sought help or received any help and counsel. Of course, like back in like the 90s and 80s and 70s and stuff. So I think that perhaps like he just took a lot of his issues out on my birth mother, and like he found someone he could control. He found someone who was in his eyes like subordinate to him, or should be subordinate to him, despite her having like a slightly better upbringing. I mean, he met her in Cuba, like she was doing her own thing in Cuba, and she had already gone through a lot, but was managing somehow some way on her own. So I think maybe there was a bit of resentment there, and narcissism, of course, and misogyny, sexism, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think, I mean, I will never really know, but I think that that was like the maybe like the culture and like the environment that um, bred the instability and toxicity in their marriage. But long story short, my father was very abusive, unfortunately, to my birth mother, like from the very beginning. And so much so that just, I think, about like 2 or 3 years into their marriage, when my birth mother was pregnant with her second child, my father abused her physically, and he was actually jailed 3 times in the year. The same year that my birth mother was pregnant, and the same year that my um, that the second child was born. My father was jailed 3 times. So that just really puts into perspective for me how wicked of a man he was. And I don't think that's really a man, how wicked of a man he was, to beat a pregnant woman. Like you pretty much are, really sick, in my opinion. Like to beat any human being, really, but to beat a human being who is pregnant, vulnerable, defenseless, and literally carrying your child. Like, you know, So he was jailed, and he was jailed not once, not twice, but 3 times. I guess he did not learn. He was like, I guess, like an animal who, I guess, didn't learn from being put in timeout and being put in a cage, because he got out of jail and he was, jailed again. And apparently, from reports that I have gathered, it wasn't even my birth mother who called the police on him. Typically, the neighbors would hear her whimpering and hear her crying through the walls in the apartments that they resided in. And that is when the police would be notified, and that is when he would be taken away. So this was at the top of the early 90s. There was a few years that passed before my parents unfortunately continued to have more children. And I say unfortunately, not so much like as a diss to my siblings, and obviously I'm one of the children that came, after the others. But I mean, it's just no children should ever be like birthed into a situation like that. The pain, the sorrow, the trauma that we carry, it could all be avoided if people literally just choose to do better, and choose not to bring people into their mess, especially vulnerable, defenseless people, like the children, like the most precious and the most defenseless. We should have just never been brought into that situation, but we were. Here I am. So later on, my parents have 3 more children. My the two siblings that are the 2 siblings that are older than me, and we were like born like right after each other, like back to back, which is also just so problematic, and just indicates like grave recklessness and carelessness, because it's like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But then I came into the picture. I was born at the very end of the 90s, and my birth parents already had 4 children. My father was the sole provider for all 4 of the children and my birth mother. So yeah, like I think that it was just carelessness and recklessness. Like, no one could convince me that these were 2 people who sat around and said like, gee, I really want like a loving, big, happy family, and I have the capacity for it. So, let me just, keep, creating children. Like, I absolutely think that my birth mother didn't have much of a say. Just from things that I know and things that I experienced, I think that she just really was a prisoner, and my father is literally a narcissist. So yeah, I think that she was just under like that narcissistic spell, his abuse. She was, a Caribbean girl, like a or young lady from the West Indies, who was completely dependent on this man that had brought her to a whole new country where she didn't even speak the language very well, couldn't even read and stuff. So it was just a recipe for disaster. And so that is how I ended up in the foster care system. I was born at the end of the 90s, literally very end of the 90s, and then literally 5 months later um, is when things began that led to me being placed into the system. So I'm going to just jump ahead. So in May of 1999, I, along with my 4 older siblings and my birth parents, were all, I guess, in a car and on our way to the state of Florida. Now, there are some things that I learned more recently, but I think I'll insert those things like later on. So I'll just say like what I know from like the documents that I've gathered. So the story goes that we were all placed, or that we were on a family vacation, that we were on a trip to go to see our um, mother's cousin. Like, apparently my birth mother had a relative, and it's supposed to be her cousin. And this cousin lived in Miami at the time with, I guess, like some other family members. So my father decided to put us all in the car, drive us to Miami, and we were staying in a motel at the time. So all 5 of us, with me being a newborn, a 5-month-old, I like to say 5-month young, because it wasn't old, it was young, but a 5-month-old baby, and children who were like around my age as well, like 2, 3, and then like 5 and 6. So we're all very, very young at the time. and we were in a motel. The motel probably only had like, you know, 2 beds for like adults, you know, so it wasn't like we were in the kind of environment that you should ever have children, you know, a motel, for crying out loud. Nonetheless, we were in this motel for about 3 months, from May 1999 to August 1999. And there were 3 separate incidents during which my father was accused of being abusive to my birth mother. And excuse me. Oh, I just saw the time. It's like a special time. Anyway, so my father was accused of being abusive. Reports were filed. Actually, let me backtrack. Yeah, I want to backtrack. There's a few things. So we're in the motel, right? And we have no food. We have hardly any clothes. Um, my I'll just say so I learned very recently from my birth father his side of the story. His story is that my birth mother had all these mental issues, probably from, you know, being severely abused, but of course, being a narcissist, he doesn't acknowledge that. So my my father's story is that my birth mother's um, mental issues began to be like too much for him, and she was always like attacking him, so he says, and like they were always fighting, and he said that he was every single time that he was only trying to help her, that he never like put hands on her, but the mental issues that she had made her think that he was a threat, right? That's his story, and that's what he wants to stick to. So the reason why, in his words, the reason why we were even in the motel in Miami is because he wanted to basically drop her off, and I guess drop us off to her family in Miami, and he wanted to go back to his life in the Midwest. He did not want to like deal with her anymore. But when he arrived to Miami, he says that he could not get a hold of my mother's cousin, like whoever he was supposed to meet with and talk to, and whoever we were supposed to go live with was unavailable at the time. And the number was disconnected. He didn't know where they were, he didn't have an address. He decided to sell his car and get rid of, I guess, the home that he had at the time, and basically like liquidate his assets just so that he could bring her and like tell his boss he was not going to be returning for it or returning to his job for a while, just so that he could drop us all off in Miami. It doesn't even make any sense because it's like, if you're going to come back, why would you sell your home? Why would you sell your car? But I don't know. I have no idea like how that made sense to him. But apparently it did. So he was devastated when he arrived to Miami, and he could not get a hold of this so-called cousin. So that's why we were in this motel. He didn't go into very much detail as to what he was doing, but he said that he, you know, slept in the streets sometimes. He said that he struggled and he worked so hard. He broke his body down to provide for his family in the motel. And on one particular night, he came back home, or came back to the motel, and my birth mother had locked the door to the motel and refused to let him inside. And he believes that, you know, it was like her having like some type of mental episode. Um, you know, I think that that's possible, but I also think it's possible that he was severely beating her, and maybe just maybe one day she just thought that she was better off, that her and her children were better off without him being allowed to return to the motel. Maybe he was unfaithful to her and she sensed that and didn't want to let him back in to the motel. I don't know. I think that I probably won't ever truly know like all that really transpired and why their actions were what they were, why they made the choices that they made. But he says that, oh snap, oh snap, my recording just like automatically stopped. I don't know why my camera does that at times, but anywho, so I was saying that on one particular night, my father, his story is that he came to the motel, the door was locked, and my birth mother refused to let him in. He had to like break down the door to get into the motel. And he said when he finally like broke, I think he said he broke the glass to unlock the door and get into the motel because it was late at night. So he said to me, or he told me that when he finally got into the door and into the motel, like they just began fighting and that she jumped on him and that she bit him. And he swears, he said that he didn't do anything. He was trying to help her. His story is that he was always just trying to help her. He says that, or he told me that the neighbors like in the other motel rooms overheard, and they heard her screaming, they heard her crying, and they heard like the glass shatter. So they called the police, and like the police came and took him away. Now that's one incident that he told me about, but there are three separate incidents that happened, and every single time there are neighbors and witnesses who reported that they heard him abusing my birth mother, and they heard him threatening to harm us children. Like literally, that's part of the report is that neighbors overheard threats. Like one of the charges was like I guess it's something like threatening to harm minors or threatening to abuse or harm minors or something like that. So he left that part out of the story, and he only told me like one story. But there are three separate incidents, like I said, during which he is like where witnesses testified, if you will, or witnesses accounted that he was the abuser, he was the antagonist, he was the aggressor in every single situation. He told me that like they didn't know what they were talking about and they just assumed the worst, but he's a narcissist, and narcissistic people literally don't see themselves as ever being problematic. They don't see the error in their ways. So I, just don't really trust anything that he has to say. I don't believe much of what he has to say. I do understand that in his frame of mind, he didn't do anything wrong and he could never do anything wrong. Like he really has that's really bad. So like I said, there were three incident reports. And another thing that I wanted to point out is that we were in that motel with no food. We were in that motel with no clothes, like I said. Like we were in terrible living conditions. So it begs the question. I mean, not that it's kind of like a rhetorical one, but it's like, what were you doing? Like, what was going on in the motel? Like, I don't understand, like, how people even have time, like, to fight, and how people have time to, like, when you're in survival mode, I do understand that you don't necessarily, like, operate at your best and stuff like that. You obviously don't make, like, the best of decisions, but when you have vulnerable, defenseless children to tend to, it's like, I don't know how you have any time to, like, to do anything except for like the best that you can to provide for the children. Maybe like in his narcissistic ways and his narcissistic mind, he blamed all of us, in our existence, for the struggle that he was enduring when he felt like he was stuck in that motel with us. And I think he just took it out on us, like the children and my birth mother at the time. So anywho, like I said, just moving along. There were three incidents um, between May of 1999 and August 1999 where several different people, literally various other people in the motel rooms, made reports to the Department of Children and Families down in the state of Florida. And they reported that we were being neglected, that we were being abused, and they reported domestic violence. It took the police and the Department of Children and Families several times before they finally removed us from that situation. I'm not sure if it was the second time, but I believe so, that the second time the reports were made and the police were notified, they took my birth father away and they put him in jail, and they put my birth mother in a shelter with all of us children, like all five of us. According to the reports, and this is a report I actually found like when I was like freshly 8 years young. Like I found this report when I was first transferred back to my birth parents' custody, and like I couldn't read as well, but I was able to make out enough to know that this report was about me. Um, and so I came across the same report like years later. And so what I remember reading when I was 8 is actually like, pretty much accurate as to what I understand to be the case in the report that I found like more recently. Anywho, the conditions were so bad that when the police came and they arrested my parents and like put my father in jail, they reported that they found a newborn baby, which was me. The newborn baby was lying in lying on the floor in a diaper that had a week. I don't know how to say this. The police found me lying on the floor in a diaper with feces that looked to be about 1 week old. Like the feces were so hard, and the diaper was, like oh my god, the diaper was full of, you know, fecal matter, feces, urine. That's how bad it was. I had no clothes on my body, and I was a newborn baby, just months and months and months young. Like, that's how bad the situation was that the police found me like that, just laying on the floor. So, they put my father in jail, and they put my mother in a shelter, and they put all of us in a shelter with us. And for some reason, at some point in time, my birth mother returned to the motel with us, and my father was still in jail. Um, Another report was made, another phone call to the Department of Children and Families was made, and another person in the motel reported that we, the children, and my birth mother were there with no food, being neglected, being abused, with an adult threatening us or threatening to harm us. And I presume that to be my birth mother. So finally, the police came again, and they that's when the Department of Children and Families finally decided to get involved and officially take us, or motion to take us away from our birth parents. Like my father was already separated, but they finally saw that even my birth mother could not do anything because she didn't have a job. She was, I think, like probably deemed like handicapped or something like that, but not so much physically, more so like mentally, I believe. I don't know. But they finally, I guess, had enough to, even though there were 2 other incidents and we had been in that situation for like 3 or 4 months, they finally had enough to, I guess, declare that my birth parents could not provide for us. So that is when I was officially taken into like police or state custody. And being the youngest one at the time, I was put into a foster home in Miami with the sibling that was born right before I was. And then my 3 older siblings, being that they were like slightly older than us, they were placed into a foster care group home. So my older sister and I, we were placed in a foster home like right away. And the older 3 children were in a shelter where they have like all the children, and the children have to wait for a family or someone to adopt or foster or adopt them. Um, and from what I read, this is because it was very difficult, and is generally very difficult to find people who will take in 5 children at once. Like typically people will take 1 or 2, maybe even 3, but they don't want to take 5 children into their home and actually provide care for them. So that is why one of my older sisters and I were placed in a foster home because we're like closer in age. And I guess my foster mother was just more comfortable with just taking 2 of us, but not all of us. So I officially entered the foster care system in the state of Florida around the age of like 7, going on 8 months, I believe. But the documentation that I originally had showed that I was taken away and like deemed like a foster child unofficially, like as early as May of 1999. And I guess that's because that's when I was entered into the Florida state system, like their Department of Children and Family Services. So anywho, I was placed in the foster care system from around the age of 5, 6, 7 months, something like that. And I remained in the custody of the state of Florida for about 7.5 years, like right before my 8th birthday. So I was a ward of the state, and like for those of you who don't know, when you're a ward of the state, you are state property. Like people who are prisoners are also like wards of the state, and like your state is like your parent. So like my foster mother was my legal guardian, but my parent was actually the state of Florida. And that was the structure, that was the system that I was in for almost 8 years, the very first 8 years of my life. So that is like, that's just the beginning, you know, as treacherous as it is. That is the beginning. Oh yes, Let me continue with the treachery. Let me continue. So I was placed into the foster home right away. As I said, my 3 older siblings were separated, right? Well, my birth mother had returned to the shelter, excuse me, she left the shelter. She was already in the motel. We were taken away from her. So somehow, some way, my birth mother found her way back to the Midwest. I'm not really sure who helped her and how, because my birth father was in jail. So I have no idea how she did that. I would guess that maybe one of her relatives, like the cousin, maybe found her, or somehow she was able to. I have no idea. I have no idea if maybe the police escorted her, helped her. I have no idea how that happened. My birth father remained in jail for some time in Miami, and then he was released, and he made his way back to the Midwest to reunite with my birth mother, unfortunately for her. So this is all in 1999. I don't know actually like how long he was in jail for, but yes, all of like the separation, the family separation, as it is called, happened in like 1999. My siblings and I remained in the foster care system for several years. My birth parents did not make any communication, or excuse me, my birth parents did not make any contact with my sister and I for almost the entire time that we were in the foster home. I'm not sure about my older siblings. Perhaps they did have some communication with my birth parents a little bit earlier, because they were returned to my birth parents' custody like a few years before we were, and years before we even knew, or before I knew that they existed. But I don't want to jump ahead too much. That is a story I could save for later on, a video that is coming later on in the series. With this one, I think this video is like already long, whoops. But for this video, I just wanted to just start with that, like just give some context, I kind of like use this video like to preface with the circumstances that led to me being placed into the foster care system. So then as I explain all of the other things that happened like during that period of 8 years or so in my life, then you have, as a viewer, you have like the context, and you can like keep this in the back of your mind and understand like some things that I experienced, or just like how I responded to some things as someone who genuinely like just did not have any recollection of her birth parents or her older siblings, and was uncomfortable with being transferred back to them like so abruptly. But again, I will leave all of that there, and in the next video, as I said earlier on in this one, I will just continue with the story, but I would start specifically with what life was like in the foster home for me, and like what the structure was like. There were other foster girls too, and then there were children who weren't fosters. There was a lot of us actually. There were a lot of children in the home. So yes, I will start with all of that in the next video. I do also want to say that if you are someone who's like been on my channel, who has seen like other videos, that pertain to like my journey and stuff. You may know that I do have a poetry collection, and the poetry collection is called Things I Never Said. It is in the description below. This series, if let me backtrack. If you have read or if you have purchased my poetry collection and you're familiar with some of my poems and my journey, I think that you may appreciate this series because now you will have like so much, maybe too much. You're gonna have so much context. So, you know, I'm glad for you. Like you'll finally be able to like connect the dots and understand. I just thought about that because like there are several things I mentioned already in this video that I have written poems about. So I was just like, like someone who has my poetry collection or who's read some of my poems or who's ever seen me like perform one of my poems, they will be able to like, they'll be able to get thoughts, they'll be able to like understand like what I was talking about and like the moments that I was describing in those poems. So I will say that like as you go throughout this series, I don't have it with me, otherwise I would pick it up and show the poetry collection, but it's like all the way over there and my camera's literally about to die, so it's okay. I'll show it next time. I'll put it up there on my little shelf. That's me. This is one of my notebooks. If you would like one, you can buy it in the or you can click the link in the description below, and like all the information is there. It's also my channel about section. But anyway, I wanted to say, if you have the poetry, oh, that's my cue. I need to go to sleep. It's so late. But anywho, if you have the poetry collection, keep it handy because a lot of this is going to connect to like the poems that I wrote and put in that collection years ago when I published it when I was 19. So yes, on that note, I will say thank you so much for listening, and yeah, it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be very therapeutic for me, I believe, and cathartic, and I think it's good for me to put everything into perspective and realize like the journey that this has been. Like this is truly like a story of becoming, and truly like the journey of my life so far as an emancipated minor turned, no, as a foster child turned emancipated minor turned, I don't know, independent warrior or warriors, I don't know. But anywho, yeah, I will leave it on this note, or I'll leave it on that note for now, because like literally I'm surprised my camera has not died. Like, oh my god, oh my god. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. On that note, I would say tata mi amores, take care. In an instant, anatomy all I see, and the lights get out.